Meantime, right now, just over 70 million Americans have cast their vote early, making their voices heard in one of the most consequential elections in American history, as we all tick down to Tuesday. Here with us now to understand how the early vote is registering is Target Smart's Tom Bonier. Tom, we're going to have you throughout this show, and I'm very glad for that. So first, quick question to you. Any conclusions we can draw so far nationally?
Yeah, well, when we look at these 70 million votes, there are some surprises in there. The biggest surprise to me is actually how closely the early vote, when we break it down by age, gender, demographics, and really partisanship, how closely it resembles the 2020 early vote. We had this expectation going in. Republicans were really going to focus and invest in getting their votes early, like they didn't in 2020. And what we're seeing, they've certainly invested in that. But when you look around the battleground states, there's only about a 0.2 of a point difference in the modeled partisanship of the early vote in the battleground states relative to where it was at this point in 2020. A lot of that's because of the types of voters that Republicans are actually turning out in the early vote. Actually, you mentioned Pennsylvania and the president speaking there now. Pennsylvania is a great example of that.
Give me a sense of what we're seeing specifically. Drill down into Pennsylvania, because that is a critical battleground state.
Absolutely. So in Pennsylvania, it's one of the states I think Republicans would point to, because we look at the battleground states, and in half of the states, Democrats are actually doing better than they did in 2020. Republicans point to Pennsylvania, where they've invested heavily, and they say, look, we're increasing our vote share among the early vote. And that's absolutely true. They are getting more of their voters out there than they did 4 years ago. But when we look at who those voters are, they're not creating new votes. Almost half of the Republicans who have voted already in Pennsylvania just voted on election day last time around, something we call cannibalization of election day vote. They're just switching how people vote. Another 43% or so of those Republican vote by mail voters in Pennsylvania so far did the same thing last time around. When we actually drill down at people who weren't registered to vote, because, again, we know that Republicans are trying to bring out new voters to be able to flip a state they didn't win last time, Democrats have a 20-point advantage in terms of partisan registration among those newly registered voters. That's a problem for the Republicans at this moment.
Wow, that is a news nugget we had not heard before. Like I said, we're going to sprinkle you throughout the show today, all 3 hours. Tom, thank you so much. Stand by. We're going to check in next hour for a really interesting look at what the early vote told us in past elections. Plus, we'll check out North Carolina. That's a big day today.